The wind was dry, carrying red dust across the empty valley. Mason's boots crunched softly as he walked. His backpack nearly emptied, just one water bottle, a half-broken tool, and an old datapad. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 2 weeks. This world was supposed to be dead. Then he saw it. A trail of blood. Thick, dark, and steaming slightly in the cold morning air. It wasn't human blood, and it led down into a rocky canyon. Mason paused. He looked left and right. Nothing but sand, rocks, and sky. His breath slowed. Carefully, hand resting near the small blaster on his belt, he followed the trail down the bottom of the canyon. The wind was quiet. Too quiet, and there it lay. A giant beast, bigger than a shuttle. Its body was curled awkwardly, one leg twisted underneath it. Its skin was covered in dark scales, cracked open in places. One massive eye slowly blinked as Mason approached. "Whoa," he whispered. It should have lunged. It should have roared. Creatures like this, called devourers in legend, were known to tear ships apart with their jaws. But this one didn't move. It only groaned, soft and low, like it was suffering. Mason stepped closer, cautiously. The beast's head lifted. An inch, then dropped again. He could leave. Walk away. Nobody would blame him, but something in that sound, that groan. It wasn't a monster's growl. Sounded like pain. He reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of dried jerky. "Here," he said, tossing it gently. The meat landed near the beast's nose. It sniffed, then turned its head away. No appetite. "Not good," Mason murmured. He walked slowly around the creature, trying not to make sudden moves. That's when he saw the wound, a massive gash on its side, burned and bleeding. Blaster fire. Someone tried to kill it, but why? T dropped to one knee and pulled off his jacket. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he whispered. The beast watched with its golden eyes, silent, still, waiting. Mason tore the jacket into strips and pressed one against the bleeding side. The beast twitched. He froze. "Easy, I'm helping." For the next hour, he worked silently, cleaning the wound with the little water he had, using broken metal from his belt to make a rough brace for the leg. The beast never tried to stop him. It breathed deeply, but slowly, like it was finally able to rest. "Don't know why I'm doing this," Mason muttered. "You'd probably eat me if you weren't dying." He sat down beside a rock, hands shaking from exhaustion. As the wind picked up again, he looked up at the canyon walls. That's when he saw her. A flash of movement, quick and quiet. Someone was up there, watching. Mason's eyes narrowed. He reached slowly for his blaster, but didn't pull it out. He looked back at the beast. Then he heard something move behind him, fast. Before he could turn, a blade pressed against his throat. "Don't move," said a voice, soft, female, but filled with danger. Mason froze. A figure stepped around him, never taking the knife away. She was tall, alien, but humanoid, skin a soft blue shimmer, like moonlight on water. Her hair was silver, braided back with leather. Her eyes, sharp, royal. "What are you doing with him?" she asked, nodding toward the beast. "Him," Mason whispered. "You know this thing?" She moved in front of him now, between him and the creature. She lowered the knife slightly. "He's mine," she said, "and you shouldn't be here. I was just helping. Humans don't help," she snapped. Mason stood slowly, keeping his hands open and empty. "Well, I guess I'm different." They stared at each other for a moment. The wind howled again. The beast let out another groan. She turned her eyes to it, pain in her face. "He's dying," she whispered. "I know." She knelt down beside it, placing her hand gently on its head. The beast closed its eyes, relaxing under her touch. "What happened to him?" Mason asked carefully. "Hunters," she said. "They thought he was wild. Tried to kill him. I tried to stop them." "You're not from around here." She gave a bitter laugh. "No, I'm from above. Far above." Mason didn't understand what she meant but didn't ask. "I can help you get him somewhere safe," he said. "Why would you help?" Mason looked at the beast, then at her. "Because he didn't hurt me, and neither did you. That's enough for me." For a moment, she didn't speak. Then very slowly, she nodded. "My name is Thera," she said. "Mason." She looked down at the creature. "His name is Vorak." The beast opened one eye and looked at Mason, and for a moment, the human and the monster understood each other. The fire crackled low. Sparks floated upward into the cold alien night. Mason sat near the flames, arms wrapped around his knees, eyes on the sleeping beast. Vorak Thera had called him. Even while resting, the creature looked dangerous, muscles tense, breathing shallow. The brace on his leg was holding, but barely. Thera sat across from Mason, silent, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. She hadn't said much since they'd made camp. She just kept sharpening a curved blade and watching the shadows around them. "You're quiet," Mason finally said. She didn't answer right away. Then softly, "You talk too much." He chuckled. "Maybe, but silence makes me nervous. And this planet is already full of surprises." Thera's gaze flicked to him. "You shouldn't be here. This world, it's not safe for people like you." "You mean humans?" he asked. She nodded. "Especially ones who interfere with royal matters." He blinked. "Royal?" She stood suddenly. "You ask too many questions. I'm trying to understand why someone would fight off armed hunters just to save a beast. And why that beast listens to you like you're its queen." At that, her eyes narrowed. "You know nothing about bonds, about loyalty. Vorak is not a pet. He is family." Mason raised his hands. "All right, I get it." She turned her back to him and walked toward the cliff edge, her silhouette glowing against the alien moonlight. He watched her for a moment, then turned his attention to the datapad he'd salvaged. Static, no signal, no maps, just old notes. From his last repair job, that's when he noticed it. A flickered dot movement in the distance. He zoomed in through the cracked lens on his datapad. Figures, several, moving, slowly, purposefully along the ridge. They were too tall for humans, and too silent for travelers. "Thera," he said quietly. She was already watching. "They've found us," she whispered. Mason stood quickly. "Who are they?" "Cracks sent by the court. They're not here to help me." "But you're royalty," Mason said. "Shouldn't they protect you?" She looked at him with pain in her voice. "Not when I'm the only one who knows the truth." The air shifted. Vorak growled low in his throat. "They'll be here in minutes," she said, grabbing her blade. Mason looked around. "We need to move." "No," she said firmly. "If we run, they'll find us." Vorak can't move far with his leg. Mason took a breath, then opened his gear case. He pulled out his old recon scanner, then flipped open the top of a hidden compartment. Inside was a dusty, worn metal glove and a belt of tools. "What is that?" Thera asked. "A favor from a war I didn't want to fight," he replied. The glove hummed as he slid it onto his hand. Blue light rippled across his arm. The belt locked into place with a click. He looked up at her. "You want to fight? I'll help you buy time." "You'd fight for me?" she asked, disbelief in her voice. "I'd fight for anyone who treats a wounded creature like family." A silent moment passed. Then Thera reached into her cloak and tossed him a small device. Use this if you're surrounded. It'll blind them for 6 seconds. He caught it? Noted. Suddenly, the silence broke. A flash of silver came slicing through the air straight toward Mason's chest. He ducked. The blade stabbed into the tree behind him. Humming with energy, Mason spun around. 3 tall figures in black armor stepped. Into the firelight, their skin shimmered like glass. Their eyes glowed teal, and they didn't speak. Just stared. Vorak let out a warning roar. Thera stepped in front of him. The tallest of the strangers pointed a long staff toward her. By order of the royal house, you are to return with us. The creature is to be destroyed. The human is irrelevant. She didn't move. I refuse. You have no authority. She raised her chin. Then you do not understand who I am. The lead tracker made a sharp gesture. Weapons powered up. Mason stepped beside her. I've got your back. Thera glanced at him. Try not to die. The first blast hit the ground near their feet, sending up dust and fire. Mason activated the glove blue energy wrapped around his arm like a shield. He dove, left, rolled, and came up with a plasma cutter from his belt. Thera was already in motion, her blade glowing, moving like lightning. The fight had begun, and Mason realized Telethes weren't just soldiers. They were trained to kill royalty. Smoke rose from the broken ground. Sparks danced in the air as one of the alien tracker's weapons sizzled, half melted from Mason's plasma cutter strike. Breathing hard, Mason ducked behind a rock, chest heaving. One of the attackers was down, unmoving, but the others were fast, too fast. He wasn't trained for this kind of fight anymore. That was a younger man's job, back when he wore armor, not patched-up boots. From the other side of the fire, Thera moved like a shadow. Blade glowed white, slicing clean through the staff of the second attacker. She didn't just fight. She flowed, every step balanced, every strike precise. Royal Guard training. Maybe even more than that. And then, everything froze. A low sound, deep, powerful. Bone dash shaking VOR rack. The beast had risen, blood still dripping from his side, but his eyes glowing golden and wild. He let out a roar that cracked the air like thunder. The last tracker hesitated for a heartbeat. Too long, Vorak leaped. Mason couldn't see the whole impact, just limbs flying. A scream that turned into a gurgle, and then silence. The only sound left was the crackle of fire. Thera dropped to one knee beside Vorak as the beast collapsed again. His strength spent, Mason stood slowly, dusting himself off. Remind me never to make that thing angry. Thera didn't smile. Her hand pressed gently against Vorak's side, over the wound. He needs real help, she said. We can't stay here. Mason nodded. My hideout's a few clicks east. It's old, but it has med supplies. Not enough for him, but maybe enough for you. She looked at him. Why are you helping me, Mason? He hesitated. Because when I found you two, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. What? Someone's still trying to protect what they love, even when it hurts. A silence passed between them, the kind that held weight. Then she looked down. You deserve to know. Mason raised an eyebrow. Know what? Without speaking, Thera pulled at the collar of her cloak. She pressed her fingers against her neck, just below her jaw. A soft glow appeared. A mark. Faint, but real. A circle of stars surrounding a three-pointed play. Flame. Mason didn't recognize the symbol, but something in the back of his mind said royalty. High blood. Galactic power. You're not just from royalty, he said slowly. You are royalty. She nodded. I am Thera Venseril, third daughter of House Sorellis. The court calls me the Fallen Flame. Mason stared. Why fallen? Her voice lowered. Because I chose truth over tradition. I refused an arranged bond with a warlord. I exposed secrets, and I paid for it. They tried to silence me. Vorak helped me escape. It's not just my beast. He was my protector since I was 10 cycles old. Mason sat back against a rock, stunned. So that's why they want you dead? Yes, and if they know you helped me, they'll want you dead too. He smirked. Guess I've had worse friends. She tilted her head. You're not scared. I am. I just hide it better than most. She finally smiled. It was small, but real. They reached the hideout just before sunrise. It was built into a rocky hill, hidden behind a false wall. Mason had made it years ago during a supply run gone wrong. Power cells were weak, but still working. He opened the hatch, and the lights flickered on. Inside, it was simple bedroll, food packs, old tools, and one working med pod for humanoids. Thera helped him settle Vorak near the entrance. Mason gave her his water and told her to rest while he worked on charging the med-unit. Later, while she slept, he studied her mark again captured in a scan while treating a cut on her neck. The datapad beeped. The mark had a royal encryption layer, but more than that, it had a signal, a beacon. He cursed under his breath. It had been blinking, calling out to the stars since the moment she activated it. Someone was coming fast, and they might not be friends. He walked over, kneeling beside Thera. She stirred, eyes opening slowly. What is it? She asked. You turned on your mark, he said. She sat up fast. I had to. After the fight, it was the only way to show you who I am. I forgot, he nodded. It's okay. But we've got company on the way. I picked up 2 ships already entering atmosphere. Her face tightened. Mason looked at Vorak, then at her. Who's coming? He asked. She took a shaky breath. If it's my eldest brother, we run. If it's the Empress's guard, we surrender. Surrender. They'll either crown me or execute me on sight. Mason blinked. That's comforting. A long silence. Then she whispered, if I don't make it, you save Vorak. He looked at her for a long moment. No, he said. If we do this, we do it together. And as the ground began to rumble from ships landing nearby, Mason tightened his glove. Thera gripped her blade, and Vorak opened one golden eye. The hideout shook dust falling from the ceiling, lights flickering. The sound of engines echoed outside, low and powerful. It wasn't just a small scout ship. Something bigger had arrived. Mason peeked through a cracked viewing screen. A dark gray transport was landing just beyond the rocks, sleek, silent, and covered in a royal crest. One he didn't recognize, but guessed was bad news. He stepped back. Heart pounding, we've got one big visitor. Thera stood near the sleeping Vorak, her blade already drawn. Let me guess, Mason said. This isn't your friendly cousin coming to take you home for tea. She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, it's him. Who? My brother, she said, voice like stone. Kareth. Outside, the ship's ramp lowered with a hiss. 6 armored figures walked out, tall, stiff, perfectly in sync. But it was the one in the middle that made Thera step back. He was massive. Not bulky, but tall, lean and coiled like a blade ready to strike. His armor shimmered with royal energy. His eyes, cold. Familiar. Kareth. Mason watched her face. No fear, just something deeper. Regret, guilt. He's here for you, Mason, whispered Thera, nodded slowly. He never forgives, never forgets. If I walk out there, he'll kill me. Then we don't let you walk out there alone, Mason said. But she turned. You don't understand. He has the right. By blood law, he was chosen to rule. I was the mistake. You exposed corruption, Mason said. That's not a mistake. That's courage. She stared at him, and for the first time, He saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes begin to fade. Then came the voice, loud, commanding, echoing across the canyon. Thera Venzerel, you are charged with treason. Step out and face judgment. Mason muttered, friendly guy. I have to go, she said. If I don't, he'll order a strike. Vorak won't survive it. Mason grabbed her arm. Then let me go with you. She shook her head. No, if you walk out with me, he'll kill you first. You're a human. You're not even worth a question. Exactly, Mason smirked. Which means I can surprise him. She looked at him and smiled. They stepped out of the hideout together, Mason unarmed, hands up, dirty from repair work. Thera walked beside him, head high, blade sheathed but visible. Kareth stood at the bottom of the ship's ramp, his guards raised there, weapons the moment they appeared. Thera raised her voice. Kareth, you didn't send a message. You didn't deserve one, he said coldly. You ran from your duties. Now, you return. Or you die. Mason stepped forward. You're her brother. Great family reunion. Kareth's eyes locked on him. And what are you? Human? Her pet. No, Mason said. Her mechanic. The soldiers chuckled, but Kareth didn't. He stepped forward, slowly. Did she tell you what she did? What she risked? She told me you were afraid of the truth, Mason said calmly. Kareth's lip curled. You'll die for that insult. Maybe, Mason said. But before you do that, ask yourself why is a human standing beside a royal girl who could have let him die? Kareth paused. Thera stepped forward. Enough. If you want blood, take mine. Leave the human out of it. But Kareth wasn't looking at her anymore. His eyes were fixed on the ridge behind them. Something was moving. Something big. Borak. He was limping, but alive. Every step shook the ground. His scales shimmered. His breath was heavy, and his eyes were locked on Kareth. Kareth stepped back. You brought the beast, he shouted. That thing should have died with your shame. Vorak growled. Then Thera did something unexpected. She pulled her blade, hat, and dropped it at Mason's feet. Submit, she said, to one condition. Kareth's eyes narrowed. What condition? That the human who saved my life and Vorak's walks free. Kareth looked at Mason, then laughed. You care for him? He said, amused. You really are broken. But he raised a hand to signal his guards. Then Mason pressed a button. On his belt, the ground under their feet lit up. A trap grid, one of Mason's old defense systems, activated. Thin blue walls of energy rose around Kareth's guards, trapping them in glowing cages. Kareth spun. What is this? I'm just a mechanic, remember? Mason said. But I like building surprises. Kareth pulled a knife and lunged. But before he reached them, Vorak stepped between. A single roar deeper than thunder. Kareth stopped in place, eyes wide, and for the first time, he looked afraid. Thera walked forward. She placed a hand on Vorak's shoulder. The beast stood still, but never blinked. Kareth, she said, her voice calm but strong. You don't decide anymore. The people will. He shook his head. You think they'll choose you? No, she said. But they'll never choose you again. Kareth looked at the glowing trap grid, then at the guards, still stunned. You've made enemies today, sister. I already had them, she replied. He turned back toward his ship. This isn't over. And then he was gone. Mason exhaled, finally relaxing. Thera looked at him. You stood beside me, even when you didn't. Have to, he shrugged. I liked broken things. She smiled faintly and whispered, so do I. The canyon was quiet, too quiet. Kareth and his guards had left, but something in the air still felt wrong, heavy, waiting. Mason paced outside the hideout, eyes on the sky. Thera sat beside Vorak, gently cleaning his wounds with the last of the medical gel. The beast had pushed himself too hard. Blood still seeped from his side. His breath came in slow, deep rumbles. "He won't survive another fight," she whispered. Mason crouched beside her. "That stunt you pulled back there. You gave him your surrender." She nodded. "I had no choice. If I had fought, Kareth would have ordered a full strike. Vorak would have been the first target. And now?" Mason asked. "Now," she said, her voice low, "he'll come back with something worse." Mason looked at the sky. "You're right." Because the clouds were parting on, something massive was descending. Not a dropship, not a scout. It was a war barge. Long, silent, coated in black armor. Royal sigils glowing red across its hull. Thera stood slowly. Her face changed not with fear, but with fury. "That's the Emperor's flagship." Mason blinked. "Your father?" She shook her head. "No, my uncle. The one who backed Kareth. If he's come here in person, then they're done playing games." Mason finished. Alarms on Mason's belt chirped. He checked the scanner. 12 life forms, all armored, all coming straight for them. Inside the hideout, Mason opened a dusty crate he never thought he'd use. Again. Inside, a power core, a pulse rifle, and an old exo-frame chest plate, barely working but still humming with charge. Thera raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're just a mechanic?" "I fixed things during the war," Mason said, strapping the chest plate over his shirt. "Sometimes the things I fixed were people." Thera gently pressed her palm to Vorak's head. "He can't help this time. He'll die if he tries." Mason looked at her. "So will we." She gave a small smile. "Then let's make it worth it." The guards arrived first, 12 in formation. Black armor, silver helmets, red visors. Behind them, 2 heavy walkers stomped forward. Each one like a steel beast, and between them, tall, pale. Wearing gold-trimmed robes stood Lord Varen, Thera S. "Uncle." He looked almost bored. His voice rang out. "Thera Venseril, you are declared unfit for the throne. You have broken sacred bonds. Surrender yourself now, and you will be spared the pain of being erased." Thera stepped forward, lifting her chin. You only erase blood, Varen. You only spill it." Varen sneered. Still so dramatic. He raised a hand. The guards aimed their weapons. Mason gripped the pulse rifle tight. "We can't win this." "Fight." "I know," Thera whispered. Then before the first shot could be fired, sound like thunder rolled behind them. Thump. Thump.vor rack.he. Stood in the fireht. Wounded. Barely holding weight, but standing, he stepped beside Thera and let out a roar so deep it shook the dust from the cliffs. Lord Varen blinked. "Impossible." "He knows I won't die alone," Thera said. "He's not a pet. It's my blood bond. Ancient law protects him." Varen raised an eyebrow. "Ancient law is dead." Mason smiled coldly. "So are your odds." He pressed a button on his glove. The canyon wall beside them exploded outwards, sending rocks flying. Mason had planted charges earlier. The blast crushed one walker and sent 2 soldiers flying. Chaos erupted. Mason opened fire. Thera moved like lightning blade flashing, cutting through the stunned guards. But there were too many. Mason took a shot to the shoulder and staggered back. Thera screamed as energy struck her leg. Vorak charged, even with a broken leg. He moved like a storm tail, sweeping, jaws snapping, crushing metal under claw. For one perfect moment, human, alien princess, and beast stood together. Not just surviving, fighting back. Then a deep, echoing tone sounded. Varen had activated something on his wrist. A heavy pulse rippled across the canyon. A disruptor wave. Vorak froze. He howled in pain. Collapsing to his knees, Thera clutched her head. Mason gritted his teeth as his suit sparked and died. The enemy closed in. Varen walked forward slowly, smug. Did you really think loyalty could stop power? He raised a blade toward Thera's throat. Then something unexpected happened. Vorak moved, bleeding, shaking, dying. But moving, he slammed one claw into the ground and dragged himself between her and Varen. His body trembled, but his eyes never left the enemy. Varen stepped back in shock. This is madness. Mason forced himself up, gun shaking in his hand. You call it madness, he said, voice ragged. But maybe this is what real royalty looks like. Thera stood behind Vorak and raised her mark. The royal flame blazed bright, so bright. Even Varen's guards froze. You want to erase me, she shouted. Then burn with me. And then everything turned to light. Asterisk silence, dot, everything was white blinding. Endless light followed by darkness. Then Mason's ears rang. His chest burned. Kai coughed hard, tasting blood. He opened his eyes. He was lying half buried in dust and rubble. His rifle was gone. His glove was cracked. His exoplate chest armor was broken and blackened. But he was alive. He pushed himself. Up with a groan, Thera, smoke filled the canyon. The air smelled of scorched metal and burning stone. As he stood, his eyes searched the wreckage and found them. Vorak lay still in the center of the canyon floor. Body limp, eyes closed. His massive chest didn't rise, and just beyond him, Thera, she was crumpled beside a broken rock. Her cloak was torn. Her breathing was shallow. Mason stumbled toward her. Come on, not like this. Don't you leave me now. He dropped to his knees beside her. Her skin was pale, most blue. Her mark, the glowing royal flame, was barely visible now, flickering weakly. No, Mason muttered, pulling out the last emergency injector from his belt and pressing it to her neck. The serum hissed. Her eyes fluttered open slowly. Mason, she whispered, voice faint. I'm here, he said, holding her hand tight. What? What happened? You saved us, he said. Warrock. Her eyes moved past him, and they widened. Mason turned. The beast was gone. Not dead gone. Only a long, dark trail of blood led out of the canyon. Mason looked back at her. He moved. Thera's lip trembled. He's going to die alone. He didn't want me to see it. No, Mason said, voice firm. She looked at him. No more running, he said. We find him together. She tried to sit up, but winced in pain. I can't walk. Mason stood, looked around and then spotted something. Part of one of the downed walkers still had a working hover sled. Half crushed, but still active. He ran over, tore off the sled plate, rigged a power coil, and brought it back. I'll carry you, he said. She blinked. You can't carry me and find Vorak. I can, he said, placing her gently on the sled. Because I made you a promise. Thera's voice cracked. What promise? Mason looked into her eyes. That if anything happened, I'd save him and you. The trail was long smeared blood over sand, claw prints growing fainter. Hours. Past the sun began to rise. Mason's legs were weak. His hands bled from pushing the sled across broken rock. He was running on fumes. But he kept going. Thera lay on the sled behind him, drifting in and out of consciousness. He's close, she whispered once. I can feel him. Finally, Mason reached the edge of a cliff and stopped. Below, the shallow cave of a canyon wall, was Vor Rack, collapsed breathing. Barely Mason climbed down carefully and stepped beside the beast. He pressed a hand to its scales, still warm. "Hey, big guy," Mason whispered. "We're not done yet." Thera crawled to the edge of the cliff above, tears in her eyes. "He's dying," she said. Mason looked at her. "No, he's waiting for you." She slid down the rocks, biting back pain. She dropped beside the beast and pressed her forehead to his. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm not leaving." Vorek's eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, they locked. Then something strange happened. The mark on Thera's neck began to glow again, bright, strong. Mason stepped back in awe. "What's happening?" he asked. Thera looked at him, surprised. "It's a return bond. He's giving me his life spark." "Is that good?" Mason asked. She shook her head. "It's forbidden. He's sacrificing everything to restore me. It's ancient. Magic, blood magic." Suddenly, her wounds began to close. Her skin returned to its natural glow. Her body straightened, but Vorak began to fade. "No," she shouted. "Stop." But it was too late. Vorek's massive eyes locked on hers. One last time, then closed, forever. Thera collapsed forward against his body. Trembling, Mason stood frozen, not knowing what to say. Then, he placed his hand gently on her back. "I'm sorry." She nodded, unable to speak. A long silence passed. Then she whispered, "He saved me." Again, Mason looked at the body of the beast's card. Broken, but peaceful. He gave his life to protect what he loved, Mason said. Thera looked up. "You did the same." He shook his head. "I'm just a man with a wrench and a broken rifle." "No," she said. "You are the only one who didn't run." Mason crouched beside her. She leaned into his side, and for the first time since he met her, she cried, not as a warrior, not as a princess, but as someone who had lost family, and Mason stayed with her, holding her hand, promising silently she would never be alone again. 3 days later, quiet wind moved across the canyon floor, brushing over the resting place of Vorek the mighty beast. The protector, the friend. Thera stood in front of the mound of stones they had built together. A rough circle of rocks marked the grave. In the center sat one of Vorek's silver-scaled claws, placed gently as a symbol. Mason stood behind her. Arms crossed, silent. She placed something at the base of the mound, a necklace, the one Vorak had carried since her childhood, his collar badge, engraved with her family's crest and her own childhood name. "Little Flame, I will never forget you," she whispered. Then she turned toward Mason. Her body was still bruised, her walk still slow, but her presence was stronger than ever. Regal, clear, whole. "I'm ready," she said. Mason nodded. "Where to?" She looked to the sky. 2. Take back what belongs to truth. He tilted his head. "You sure the galaxy's ready for you?" She gave a soft smile. "They'll have to be." A week later, Mason woke up in a bed far too soft for a guy who usually slept on rocks. His eyes opened slowly. The ceiling above him was carved glass, swirling with soft blue light. He sat up and almost fell over. A medical bot chirped. "Patient. Recovery complete. Please do not attempt to disarm Royal Assistance units." "What the hell?" Mason muttered. The door opened. Thera stepped in, wearing a silver and blue robe lined with gold. Her mark glowed brightly, now burning with power. "You're awake," she said gently. He blinked. "Where am I?" "The Flame Core," she said. "My family's hidden stronghold. I thought they tried to kill you." "Not all of them," she said. "Some were waiting. Some still believed in me." "Your message, your fight. It gave them proof?" "My message?" he asked, confused. She walked to the side table and handed him a datapad. On it, a recorded clip. His voice, rough, shaky, but honest. If you're hearing this and I'm gone, then protect her. She's not just royalty. She's a person worth saving. Thera sat beside him. You said that during the battle. The internal systems recorded it. It spread across the fleet. People began to ask questions. And when I returned with proof of Kareth's crimes, he sat up straighter. What happened to him? Exile. She said, forever. And your uncle? Gone. She said. We think he escaped, but he will never lead again. Mason exhaled. That's a lot. She looked at him. You gave everything to save us. I want to give something back. He raised an eyebrow. I'm not looking for medals. No, she said. But maybe a choice. A choice. She stood and walked to the window. It opened silently, revealing a massive alien city floating over golden clouds. I can give you land, a title, a fleet if you want it. But I know you. That's not who you are. He walked beside her. So what's my choice? She looked at him not as a princess, not as a soldier, but as Thera. You stay, she said. With me as my advisor. My protector, or if you want, my partner. Mason chuckled softly. Partner, as in ... political or romantic. She smiled. Both. He looked out at the floating city. It was beautiful. But more than that, it felt like it needed someone like him. Someone who didn't play games, who told the truth, who would fix what others broke. He looked at her. You? Sure, I'm royal material. She stepped closer. You stood beside a dying beast. You carried me through hell. You fought off a warlord without backup. That's not royal. Then we've been defining it wrong. He took her hand. All right, he said. But I have conditions. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, number 1. I still get to sleep in dirty boots sometimes. Agreed. Number 2. No calling me Lord Mason. Sounds weird. She laughed. Done. And number 3. He leaned closer. If I fall in love with you, you can't blame me. Her smile faded, but only to be replaced by something softer. You're already halfway there, she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. And so are you. That night in the Flame Core's garden, it's under a sky full of swirling stars and golden clouds. They lit a single blue flame at Vorek's shrine. It burned higher than any light in the city and across the galaxy. The story spread. A human stood beside royalty, not for power, not for reward, but because loyalty, love, and sacrifice were stronger than blood. And in that moment, humanity proved once again, sometimes the strongest hearts aren't born royal, they're made.